Today's video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Elendil, the man who led the faithful out of Numenor. Isildur, the one who cut the ring from Sauron's finger. Then there was Anarion. But who is this second son? Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword, your YouTube home for The Lord of the Rings and all things J.R.R. Tolkien. In today's video we look at Elendil's less famous son, Anarion.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
While his father Elendil was the first High King of Arnor, the charge of Gondor in the south was given to both his sons. Isildur, the one who was most well known for cutting the One Ring from Sauron's finger and then not destroying it, and the other being Anarion, his younger brother. Elendil had founded Annúminas in Arnor, whereas Isildur had founded Minas Ithil in Ithilien, and Anarion had founded Minas Anor in Anarion. First of all, the two realms were much too far apart for them to be ruled by a single individual, both geographically and politically. So, in this video we will look at the important events before, during, and after Anarion's life, and attempt to answer the question, why is Anarion lesser known than his father and his brother? Raid Shadow Legends is what happens if you cross a blockbuster movie with a real AAA game and then squeeze it into a mobile phone. Over 80 million people are playing it across the world. So why not kick off 2023 by jumping into the realm of Teleria 2? Raid is a game for any of you out there. Whether you're into the lore, the action, mastering the game, the social side, or just to tick off achievements. Maybe, obviously for me, the lore plays such a big role in my enjoyment. Learning about the world, its history, and the beings who have lived there is just so much fun, whether that is through the huge adventure of the campaign or from discovering new raid bosses. Every new drop of knowledge just adds to this game for me. With Raid approaching its 4th anniversary, there are a bunch of new features like the new Season of the Forge Pass, the Plarium Points program, new champions, and even the Titan event. This game is completely free to play, and when you consider that it includes over 650 completely unique champions, that is crazy. There is currently the Champions Elect event going on. All you have to do is head over to championselect.plarium.com, enter your player ID, vote for your chosen favourite starter champion, and then you will be entered into an awesome competition to win great in-game prizes like epic and legend champions, or real-life prizes like Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. But that is not even everything. New players, if you use my link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen, you get both a free starter pack and all of this in-game loot. And to go with that too, we have one more thing. A certain MMA and professional wrestler, Ronda Rousey, is loving her time on this game. You can get Ronda by simply logging into Raid for 7 days before February the 20th. You can even use the promo code RAIDRONDA to get even more useful in-game items too. So, what have you got to lose? Check out Raid Shadow Legends today. If you love your Tolkien content, then please be sure to leave us a like on the video and subscribe to join the ever-growing Brohirrim. But now, for our purposes in this video, there are some important dates to keep in mind, which will lead us to the fortification and founding of the permanent havens by the Númenóreans in Middle-earth. In 1200 of the Second Age, being the same year Sauron would come among the Eldar to treat, he would get rebuffed by Gil-galad, but move on to the Smiths of Eregion and win them over. Then, in 1800 of the Second Age, the Númenórean colonies along the coasts of Middle-earth would become fortresses, and the men who had formerly benefited from the friendship with the Númenóreans become to come under their oppression. Next we have 2280 of the Second Age, where Umbar is built as a great fortress of Númenor, with not too long after, in 2350, Pelagia also being built, servicing the faithful among the people of Númenor as their chief harbour and haven. Moving forward again, in 3319 of the Second Age, Ar-Pharazôn's great armament makes war on Valinor, and Númenor is sundered beneath the waves while 9 ships, of which are Elendil and his sons Isildur and Anarion, escape the downfall of Númenor to reach Middle-earth. This leads to the foundation of those realms of Arnor in the north and Gondor in the south, all of which in 3320 of the Second Age. So, While Isildur and Elendil are of great renown and their deeds and lives remain in the songs of heroes and are passed down from generation to generation, much of what we know about Anarion is related to what was happening around him, not necessarily because of him. There are other reasons that we know to diminish the impact of Anarion on history, and foremost of these would be, and I guess there's spoilers here in a way, his death during the long struggle that became known as the War of the Last Alliance. By the time Sauron was thrown down, Anarion had already died, killed at the Siege of Barad-dûr by falling rocks. And although you may say, well, Elendil died shortly after too in this same war, he was the king and died taking down Sauron, not just by some rocks. It seems though that Anarion is not the only one associated with the short end of the stick when it comes to characters who associate themselves with him, as we know that Denethor, in his madness and when confronted by Gandalf, announces himself, and perhaps some comparisons can be made between the two characters. At the moment that we will take a look at now in the story, Denethor has taken his second son Faramir's body into the crypts to join him on the pyre. It is then he is confronted by Gandalf. Denethor's mind has been broken by long years of strain and sorrow, as well as contending with the will of Sauron directly by way of the Ithil Stone, one of the Palantiri. "Pride and despair," he cried. "Didst thou think that the eyes of the White Tower were blind? Nay, I have seen more than thou knowest, grey fool. For thy hope is but ignorance. Go then and labour in healing. Go forth and fight. Vanity! For a little space you may triumph on the field for a day, but against the power that now arises there is no victory. To this city only the first finger of its hand has yet been stretched. All the east is moving, and even now the wind of thy hope cheats thee and wafts up the Anduin, a fleet with black sails. The west has failed. It is time for all to depart who would not be slaves. Such counsels will make the enemy's victory certain indeed," said Gandalf. "Hope on then," laughed Denethor. "Do I not know thee, Mithrandir? Thy hope is to rule in my stead, to stand behind every throne, north, south, or west. I have read thy mind and its policies. Do I not know that this halfling was commanded by thee to keep silence? That he was brought hither to be a spy within my very chamber? And yet, in our speech together, I have learned the names and purpose of all thy companions. So, with the left hand thou wouldst use me for a little while as a shield against Mordor, and with the right bring up this ranger of the north to supplant me. But I say to thee, Gandalf Mithrandir, I will not be thy tool. I am the steward of the House of Anarion. I will not step down to be the dotard chamberlain of an upstart, even were his claim proved to me. Still he comes but out of the line of Isildur. I will not bow to such a one, last of a ragged house long bereft of lordship and dignity." We see here how Denethor bemoans his role in what is to be the fate of his people, and as presented it could very well be from the perspective of Anarion himself, had he been able to foresee the way he would be eclipsed in the future by his brother Isildur. Just as Denethor is here unable to come to terms with his life's long labours being eclipsed and himself forgotten by the return of the king in the person of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir of Isildur. Also remember, if you would like to see a video dedicated to Denethor too, we put out one on how misunderstood he is last week. For those of you who only know the movies, it may well surprise you, so please go and check that out. But anyway, as aforementioned, Elendil was the High King of Arnor after he and the 9 ships of the Faithful escaped the downfall of Númenor. When Isildur took over this role, he would in time come to appoint Meneldir, the son of Anarion, as the King of Gondor. However, things were not all simple between this family. There was conflict among the descendants of Isildur and his intentions for the kingdom he inherited to continue on after his deaths on the fields of Gladden, when feathered by arrows and betrayed by the Wergild, the One Ring, which Isildur had taken from Sauron the Dark Lord as payment for his father's life. This is an Anglo-Saxon tradition, by the way, and one which Tolkien would have surely been aware of. What appears likely is that Isildur would have wished his descendants to remain as the High King of Arnor, while the descendants of his brother would rule Gondor, split in a manner similar to that of the division first implemented by his father. The problem was that Isildur's fourth son, Elendil, the one to have not been present at the Gladden Fields, was but a boy of 13. And well, the ruling king of Gondor, Elendil, was a man of pure Númenórean blood and known to be the last child to be born on the island itself before its sundering. The king of Gondor here was 125 years of age, so having lived more than a century longer than the other king, and was unlikely to suborn himself to the boy king of Arnor, much less acknowledge the child king to be his lawful superior. Regardless of all he had working in his favour, Elendil seemed unwilling to go north to Arnor and Númenas, the capital established by Elendil, to forcibly take the sceptre and position of High King. Similarly though, the young King Elendil, when old enough to act as a free agent, was also unwilling to do likewise in attempting to force his cousin in Gondor to bend the knee and acknowledge his supremacy. The two colonies in exile were, as stated, much too far apart to be ruled by one person, and it is possible this uneasy status quo might have lasted, producing two branches of the Dunedain royal line, with the Arnor line being considered the royal branch, and the Gondorian line being the cadet branch. Meanwhile, any notion that the kings of Gondor owed their respect to their northern counterparts slowly passed into memory. Some things that should not have been forgotten were lost. History became legend. Legend became myth. And we all know the rest. The year that is important for our sake now, though, is 1644 of the Third Age, when King Ondahur, 31st King of Gondor, and his sons died on the field. In the aftermath of King Ondahur's death, in the successor state Arthedain, its king claimed the throne of Gondor. The latter refused him on the grounds that Isildur's right to the throne of Gondor was relinquished and conferred upon Elendil, which of course came to be disputed by Arvedui, the 15th King of Arthedain. He reasoned thusly: first, that Isildur could appoint a king without that meaning he intended to have relinquished titles or any future claim, as he had done with Elendil. Regardless, Arvedui was unsuccessful, and the Council of Gondor conferred the kingship on the descendant of Elendil, Eärnil II, who became the 32nd King of Gondor and was known in his time as a capable general and popular figure too, himself still a member of the House of Anarion. Eärnil II's kingship was the penultimate kingship of Gondor, as upon his death the crown passed to Eärnur, a man with more verve than wisdom. So, when he was thrice baited by the Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nazgul himself, on a charge of cowardice, he was lured from Minas Tirith, and when he left, his crown was left behind as well. From there he rode to Minas Morgul, and he was not seen again after entering those gates. As his death was unable to be confirmed, and with no clear successor, the line of stewards took the helm of Gondor at that point in the person of the steward of Eärnur, Mardil Voronwë of the House of Húrin, a position not unlike the Prime Minister here in the UK, and they would rule Gondor for the next 25 generations in the king's name. And so, there we have it. What do we really get from all of that, and jump in far into the future after Anarion's death? It can be read that Anarion has become the lesser of the two brothers only in historical memory, as he was not to blame for the political turmoil which resulted from his death. It is also possible that the long shadows cast by his father, the High King of Elendil, who, along with the last High King of the Noldor, had slain Sauron the Great, while his older brother Isildur, with the shards of Narsil, had cut the One Ring from the very finger of the Dark Lord. As a result of those accomplishments, not least among them being present at the defeat of the Dark Lord, Isildur is similarly remembered to their father. After all, he was the one, as said, to cut the ring and send him to the void for centuries, at a time when it was believed that the Dark Lord would be gone forever. Meanwhile, though Anarion had fought with honour, his death was far less glamorous, being killed by the chance of a falling stone at the siege of Barad-dûr. But it is important to remember his accomplishments too. While Isildur fled down the Anduin to Pelagia to rejoin Elendil, there to regroup with the elves and the rest of the Last Alliance. At that time, Anarion had continued to defend Osgiliath from Sauron and his armies for 5 years, while the Last Alliance marched over the Misty Mountains and down through the Vale of Anduin onto Mordor, which culminated in the defeat of Sauron's armies in Dagor Dagorlad 3434 of the Second Age. It was defended against Sauron, who had the ring at the time, as well as the Nazgul. So, in addition to the quality of Osgiliath's defences, it must be said that Anarion's skill in holding back the forces of evil does well to commend him as more than merely the second son, or little brother, who should forever remain in the shadow of his more famous, more accomplished brother and father. It is important to remember that Anarion never lived to rule his own right, as he died before the war was won, and in the aftermath, Isildur appointed Anarion's son Elendil as the High King of Gondor. You would just hope that his son would have done the father proud. With that now though, it is time for my question of the day, which is, do you think Anarion is rightfully or wrongfully often forgotten? Does he deserve more respect, or is he just forgettable? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section below. And now to shout out our patrons. You guys have been incredible in supporting our short film, and we cannot thank you enough. We have the Divine Power tier members of Kevin and Abram, the Fire Demon tier members of Nashith and Gregory, and the Wizard Staff tier members of John, Andrew, Jennifer, Hunter, and David too. Every single one of you is a true legend of the Bro Hero. And thank you once again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Do not forget to check out the link in the description below or the QR code on screen. Finally, if you have managed to reach the end of the video with me today and you are enjoying what you see on the channel, please hit that subscribe button with the bell icon too, so that you can be notified of all future uploads. And so, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.